I'm just trying to get them. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Y'all, we could go and get started. We got some folks got to get to some more committees. You know how the Senate is. They think they got to do stuff different. And a couple of members got to get to the Senate to try to get some bills out. Terry, would you mind saying a prayer for us, please, sir?
Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day that you've given us. We thank you for the life-giving rain that you've also sent our way, Lord. Lord, we just ask you to be upon all these things that we do today, and that your blessing be on it, and it be your will, Lord. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. We got 4 little old bills today we need to look at and do something with. Don't forget Ag Days, 11 to 2 down at the depot. If you want some good food and learn a little bit about what we're supposed to be representing up here, ease on down there. Senator Kemp, do you mind if we do 453 first? Are you okay with that? You ready? Terry's kind of the quasi-expert on biodiesel, I think, on this committee, and he's got to get to another one. If you don't mind doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hang on a minute. Either let me move the mic or if you don't mind. If you rather sit down, Brian, that's fine.
I just seems
Whatever you want to do.
make me closer to my chairman over here. Maybe he'll. Good morning. Glad to be back with y'all this morning. Appreciate you taking up Senate Bill 453. I guess you all know that the subcommittee changed the bill quite a bit. What I was trying to do in the Senate was to form a partnership between state and local governments to help spur the biodiesel market in Georgia by requiring that state governments, state-funded school systems, and local and municipal governments would be required in 2008 to use 2% biodiesel in their fleets, and that would be for vehicles that could use biodiesel without having to require expensive transformations to the vehicles to do that. So as you know, this is a huge market. It's a huge issue for making us less dependent on foreign oil, and while this is a very small step, I think it puts Georgia in the right direction toward inspiring this market. It's good for the environment, it's good for our Georgia farmers, and it's also good because we have companies that are actually producing this product in Georgia now, and a couple of others that are coming, new plants that are going to be built that will provide infrastructure and jobs here in this state. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. There's a lot of other states that are using incentives and other legislation to help create the market in states around us. I feel like that we need to move, and we need to move now in Georgia to be a leader in this. If we don't, we may lose a lot of that infrastructure to other states. So we actually wanted to require this be done. The subcommittee yesterday, I think, put in the word urge it be done. So basically it's not a requirement. It's more of they can do it if they want to. I respect the thoughts of the subcommittee, but in my humble opinion, the difference between shall and may in government is if you say may to government, that means they're not going to change. They're notoriously slow to change in any way. So I like requiring this. We're talking about a couple of million gallons of this product, which is not a tremendous amount on the large scale picture. I think it's something that's easily done. I know ACCG spoke against the bill yesterday as being a mandate. While we will require them to use this fuel, we're not requiring them to buy it if it's any more expensive than conventional diesel fuel. We're not requiring them to buy it if the fuel is not available. So in that regards, I don't necessarily see it as a mandate. I see it as leadership of state government taking a lead and helping spur this market to be less dependent on foreign oil, and it would be good for Georgia farmers and Georgia businesses. So I'd love to see the bill go back, but I understand what the subcommittee does, and I know that's up to the committee. But regardless, I'd like to see the bill considered and passed out of the committee and continue through the process. I think we got the definition of the bill ironed out yesterday with the help of the subcommittee and Chairman Bullock and others that's been working on this. And I'm glad of that and certainly supportive of that. And I would just tell you, too, I went and have spoken to the ACCG breakfasts they've had the last few weeks to their members. And I'll tell you that I've had a lot of those members come up to me after the meeting and thanking me for introducing this bill, saying that some of them were already doing this, that others felt like they needed to be doing it. So I think that this is a good piece of legislation and would like to ask for your consideration on it, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anybody got any questions for the senator?
Are we talking about substitute? Is that what we voted?
Yes, sir. I don't actually have a
40
copy of the substitute
4544. Yes.
from yesterday's changes. But
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Al.
As I read this bill, it only requires a 2% usage provided it's not at a higher price than petroleum products available. For the benefit of the people that haven't kept up with this business of alternative fuels, we had a study committee here a couple of years ago on this very subject, and it was very evident that we can produce biodiesel and all these products, and at the price that petroleum products are selling for today, we can produce them at a competitive price. The challenge for private industry is you're talking about massive investments in capital outlay for these plants to get them up, and then you're vulnerable to the fact that the petroleum companies can undercut the price at any time that they were to choose to drop their price below your cost of production. And the conclusion that I came to is that we're never going to see these alternative fuels developed into a substantial portion of our energy until we are willing to make a commitment to give some protection either by mandated usage or else through some tariffs or something restrictions on some of this imported oil or that sort of stuff. No one, I don't think, has been any stronger against unfunded mandates, and I don't think that very likely we're going to pass anything that provides some funds that would cover the local government's cost if we mandated they use this. If it was not, I'd say 10% higher, some figure that even if that biodiesel did cost a little bit more, they would still have to be required to use it. But I'd like to see some provisions put in here that says the state would have to use it if it was 10% higher or whatever figure you want to derive at. I think it would be a much stronger statement. What we've got right here is a good political statement, and I'm 100% behind you, but I'd just like to make it a little bit stronger. The rest of the committee would like to consider stepping into that.
Well, thank you, Representative Black. I mean, that's the way I feel, and actually we are requiring state vehicles and school systems to use 2% in this bill. The original Senate bill was because we said that they would be required to buy 2%, but it's not an unfunded mandate because we're not requiring them to purchase the fuel if it's more expensive than conventional diesel. And the whole fact on availability, if the fuel's not available, the price is going to be so much higher than diesel fuel, they're not going to be required to buy it anyway. So I feel like the availability is a moot point. But we had people that actually came to the committee meetings in the Senate that are producing this fuel, and I have a letter that I'll be glad to share with you that basically, originally we had the date on this for 2010 to give people time to build the market up and supply the fuel. We felt so comfortable that we moved that to 2008. Now, I'll tell you that in committee, they said that they could do it in the next year, that within a year from now there would be no problem supplying this. And that's fuel that would be made here in Georgia, not to mention, where else in the country that this fuel could be purchased from. But, my whole thing was to try to help spur the Georgia market on, and that's why we wanted to require the 2% usage and show that state and local governments could be leaders in helping fuel this industry, and then a little quicker than it's being fueled now, and then let the private sector take over. Because I agree. I mean, we can't continue. It's sickening to me that every morning when you open a paper up and you've got a country like Iran or somewhere else that because of one little bad day on the stock market, oil price futures shoot up. Now, this is a small step, but you think if 40 or 50 other states took this step, that would make a difference on supply, and it will send a message to consumers that we can produce these products. And I think the more that we keep producing them, the more that we keep working on research and technology, the better we're going to be at producing this fuel at a cheaper price, and hopefully one day it will truly be not only cost competitive, but we all know it's good for the environment. And Senator Williams, who I said yesterday in the subcommittee, is running a 20% blend in his tractors that haul his pine straw trailers, is getting better fuel mileage.
Robert?
Senator, are the local governments, state governments been opposing this?
That's a good question. The only people that has really spoken against it was ACCG. When I introduced the legislation, I took a copy of it to ACCG, to GMA, to the school superintendents and the school folks, and shared them the legislation. They're the ones that came up with putting available in, so that it would make sure that the fuel was available, and work with them on some language on that. And then after we passed it out of the committee, where they didn't really speak against it, then they came out against it, which was kind of surprising to me. But I've disagreed with them on their position on this. And as I told you earlier, I've had a lot of the county commissioners that have come up and said, we're already doing this. This is good. We can do it. It's not a problem. But none of the other people have come to speak against the bill.
Well,
that we're including in this.
Seems to me that if we ever going to start something, if we're going to have industry here, we got to give them some kind of support to keep them here and keep them growing. And even 2% is pretty low, especially in non-containment areas like Atlanta and like Macon is now. That you'd not only be helping agriculture and the fuel, but you'd be helping the pollution.
Right.
But I sort of agree with Representative Blight on his statement he made a few minutes ago. That seems like to me that if we're ever going to do anything at all, now's the time to start, and that's really a slow start.
Well, I agree with you, but I think it is a start, and I think it's something that we can certainly live with. Now, there's been other states, I think it was Minnesota, that basically mandated that everybody would have to use it in the whole state, whoever had a vehicle, and they had problems getting the product. They had problems with how cold weather affects the product, and that's why we're keeping this limited to government doing this, to have a first step. I'm not, I've told the industry people I have no intentions in the future of pushing this on the private sector, that this is just government's role in leadership and help spurring this market that we can be such a leader in here in Georgia.
Well, Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate time for a motion?
Well, I guess.
I'd like to, I think if we're ever going to be serious about having the Saudi Arabians go back to raising goats instead of holding us hostage for oil, that we do have to do something serious. And this 2% is nothing, and if the price is higher, they don't have to do it. So it really is permissive. But until we have something a little stronger, nobody's going to do it. Nobody's going to put the investment here until they made the bases go to alternative fuel. The bases, the military didn't do it. When they said you got to do it, everybody converted to it. And I just like to move that we change the may back to shall.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we went, just to clarify, from require to urge.
We go from urge back to require.
Okay.
Chairman, may I speak to that amendment?
Yeah, go ahead. I got a question too that, just
To the
clarification.
Senator and to Representative Porter, I don't think this committee, from what I have heard from individuals, are opposed to what you're trying to do. I think that what you, that the mood is that you're about a year and a half ahead of where they want to be, where this committee is. That's a fair statement. I think that by changing it back, if it was available now, I don't think you'd have a problem. And I think that's where the concern is.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
I appreciate the comment on that, and I think that's one reason that we set the date for this legislation for January in 2008 to make sure that we would be ready. But I would just say to the committee again that we had testimony on the Senate side that it was not, that the product's basically available now. I mean, there's people, my distributor in Athens that's got the Chevron jobber is selling biodiesel now. I think Davis Oil in Perry or Houston County is selling it now. The people that are making biodiesel in Rome have told me that, and I'll be glad to share a letter with you, that they can produce this amount now. So I feel confident that we are ready for this, and that's, of course, my humble opinion, Mr. Chairman.
I ain't got a second on the motion yet. Dr. Jean, right quick.
Yep. Senator Kemp, I had some opposition from my county commissioners in both counties, and that's the reason yesterday I was in favor of going from shall to urge.
Okay.
So I see my Senator Bullock. I don't know if he's had any opposition from the Senate side or not.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor to, you want to go to require and then change the mays back to shall, right? Put it back like it was when we got it yesterday.
Technology is not available. Compatibility, you don't have to do it. Availability, you don't have to do it. I mean, there's enough. You know, if it's not available, it's more expensive, they don't have to do it. But if it's available and costs the same or less, then are we ever going to start creating a market that's worthwhile that we can use Georgia product rather than Venezuelan and Arabian products in our markets? And if we're serious about doing that, 2%'s not much. And if it's not available, if the technology's there, it's not compatible, they don't have to do it.
All right, everybody understand? All in favor of Representative Porter's motion to do what he said it did, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
We're going to have to do a hand token on that one. All in favor of Representative Porter's motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? Is that what you got going? Chuck, Pete, Ellis, Robert, and Debo. Is that right, Debo? All right, all opposed to it, do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that comes down to me. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to have to vote no, though, because I'm afraid if you put a mandate, it'll get hung up in rule.
Okay.
And then that was the whole, I agree with the bill.
Well, I appreciate you considering the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Okay, go ahead. Hit your button.
I'd like to make a motion to do pass on the sub, I think it's LC 25.
45, 44.
That's it.
Motion and second to pass out the substitute that came out of subcommittee yesterday. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, members of the
Thank you,
committee
sir.
and the subcommittee. I appreciate your work and consideration.
All right, let's do center bullet biodiesel definition. You ready? They told me you had to wait on something. Want me to wait, and then you showed up. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had two committee meetings at the same time over here in the Coverdale building, so I ran by the other one first and handled that one real quick and made it here before you actually got started. So a little faster than I thought it would be. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come before the House Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee and present Senate Bill 636, which is a bill that gives a definition and also puts a penalty for anybody that produces for sale a biodiesel that meets the standards. Yesterday and most every time that this issue has been discussed, there's been a lot of questions that come up and talk about the American Society of Testing and Materials standards and where it comes from, and do we need to be adding something else to it, and we discussed this yesterday in subcommittee. And so today I want to give you a little explanation, maybe would be a better word, to why this is the way we need to be going instead of putting nouns in or products in or whatever. And it's very often that a broad general description is used to define biodiesel in a way that's easy to understand by the general public. However, when these broad descriptions are adopted by authoritative bodies as a formal definition, they include a wide range of experimental fuels that are not biodiesel. The term biodiesel has a specific technical definition that's been agreed to through a painstaking process by members of industry and government, which has received full approval by the American Society of Testing and Materials, ASTM, the premier standard-setting organization for fuels and fuel additives. That definition is used for purposes such as alternative fuel designation, EPA registration, or other regulatory purposes. Nonetheless, the specific technical definition can be confusing to the general public. Therefore, the general definition is a simple definition for the general public. Now, when we look at the general definition, it's a biodiesel is a domestic renewable fuel for diesel engines derived from natural oils and which meets the specification ASTM D6751. Now, in the general definition, biodiesel is not the same as raw vegetable oil. It's produced by a chemical process which removes the glycerin from the oil. Now, the technical definition is biodiesel is defined as D6751 and is registered with the U.S. EPA as a fuel and a fuel additive under Section 211B of the Clean Air Act. So all of these things, we want to be sure that the potential products that we have in this great state to develop a biodiesel product from, that they're covered. But when we're talking about the definition of biodiesel, now it's a standard and it's there. Now we don't have the power in the state of Georgia to change that standard. Now we can certainly put in incentives and put in encouragements or requirements of utilizing or developing the industry in the state of Georgia that would produce biofuels that could become a part of this standard definition. But until this definition changes, they can't be listed as a biofuel. Now, that's not to say that it won't change, because it changes, as it was stated yesterday. I mean, this was started back in 1994, a biodiesel definition by the ASTMA. Now, the original definition actually was ASTM PS 121-99, and that came out of the 1994 study that was made about it. Now, in June of 1999, that's when they actually approved the standard that was started in 94. But in 2001 is when the D6751 standard was actually established and has been modified as things change. So when we look at the definitions, we look at where we're coming and going to and what's being utilized. When we look at engine manufacturers, they've already specified that the biodiesel in most all companies has to meet ASTM D6751. So this is where the standard comes from. There's been some discussion about BQ 9000. BQ 9000 is really an industry standard that's been established by some members of the industry for quality control, but it's not a definition of biodiesel. It takes the American Society of Testing Materials standard, and what it does is adds to that a quality system that includes the storage, sampling, testing, shipping, distribution, and fuel management practices that the industry has. So BQ 9000 is not a definition. It's a quality standard that the industry has set for themselves. What we've tried to do here with this definition, which it also puts into law that anybody that manufactures it and produces it or offers it for sale, that now we're talking about biodiesel. We're not talking about a blended fuel, as the senator had presented in his legislation. That's where you've blended biodiesel with a petroleum diesel at a minimum of 2% up to whatever. You can burn pure biodiesel. Diesel engines can handle that in some cases. So what I'm presenting to you today in SB 636, and I'm going to ask Mr. Allen, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, because in this substitute that I presented to the subcommittee yesterday, I actually had some concerns, because when we talk about a person, I want to be sure that we're defining properly that we're talking about a person that produces biodiesel, because we are putting a penalty, it's a misdemeanor, but putting a penalty in here for somebody that produces it that doesn't meet this standard. So, Mr. Allen, if you would, talk a little bit about how we're going to include the word producer in here and where it comes in.
To clarify, for purposes of the senator, on line 11, to insert before the word offer, insert the word produce, comma. After the word sale, insert a comma. Then on line 12, at the end of the line, after the words fuel for, insert the words subsequent sale for. What this would do is clarify that this does not address the retailers, and it does affect the people who produce the fuel for subsequent blending.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, and however y'all would like to handle it in your committee, either offer that as an amendment or offer that as a substitute to this substitute, however it would best fall into the way y'all would like to handle it. Be glad to try to answer any questions anybody might have about it.
Anybody have any questions for the senator or Wayne, either one? You both?
Well, if you change it to produce for sale, aren't you going to cut off any innovation of anybody trying to come up with a product? I mean, if you get to the producers, what about any innovation of someone trying to produce this? You going to make them a criminal for trying to produce it, whether they sell it or not? Much less, I mean, why would you go after someone trying to come up with innovation?
This ain't got anything to do with innovation. This is somebody that's producing something that meets this current standard, Mr. Porter.
And if they don't meet that standard, they'd be a crook.
Well, but they can't, under federal EPA Clean Air Act laws, they can't do it. They've got to get this approved by not EPA, EPD, under the Clean Air Act, any product that they come up with. This hasn't got anything to do with the potential development of other sources of this product. Wayne, would you like to?
As it is written, it would apply to the producer only if the producer offers it for sale. If it's in-house research or whatever, it would not apply to it unless they offered it for sale.
That doesn't meet the 6751.
Yes, sir.
And by EPD, federal guidelines under the Clean Air Act, they can't do it anyway until they've gotten that approval. And this all tracks right back to that same federal requirement under the Clean Air Act.
So if you're not a producer, you can't offer it for sale then.
Well, the definition of producer, I think, Mr. Porter, would be somebody that offers it for sale. I mean, that if you're producing it for the purpose of selling it, whether it's to be blended or used 100%, that it has to meet this standard.
You're not the one that produces it, you're not liable.
That's correct. That's correct.
Penny?
At the proper time, I'd like to call the question with these amendments.
Can I get a couple of lights right quick?
Okay.
Chuck?
Senator, I think what you're trying to get at is that you're, maybe this is just for clarification, you're saying that you don't want somebody to offer for sale something that would not meet the standard that would probably make a retailer out there not meet the Clean Air Act. Is that what you're trying to get at? That's just where I am on your amendment.
Well, the amendment is more for clarification, not to change really anything that's there and what you're already looking at. It's just for clarification that the retailer is not involved. We're dealing strictly with the producer of this product.
So,
Short answer, yeah.
follow-up question. What I'm saying though is if a producer of the industry, whatever it is, that if they don't meet this standard, what you're trying to get at with the law is that you don't want them to be able to sell it out here to put that wouldn't meet the Clean Air Act standard. What you're saying is it's got to meet the Clear Air Act standard in order to meet the blending so that the retailer can sell it. Is that where you are? I'm just trying to get clarification.
Mr. Sims, I'd say yes, that's where we are, because we're just putting a definition in the Georgia law that we don't have today, and we're putting in a little bit of enforcement behind anybody that doesn't adhere to this as the standard in the state of Georgia, which is being done all across the whole United States.
Ellis, right quick. We're going to lose the quorum here if we don't get this stuff moving.
I'd just like to ask the senator, since I'm not familiar with standard D6751, if he's had input from the people that are already in the business of producing biodiesel, and if they are comfortable with this.
Right.
Yes, sir. I mean, this is a standard. The American Society of whatever standard. You're gonna have to let me find it again. American Society for Testing and Material Standard. That's all it is. Is this just a standard that this society, based on testing of all these materials, says this is what it's got to meet to be defined as a biodiesel.
Ellis, if it meets a quality under 6751, there ain't gonna be no truck sitting on the side of the road because of biodiesel. Maybe some other reason, but
I don't know, but I suspect that this group that sets the standards is dominated by the petroleum industry and has capacity. I don't want
oh, did you make a
this
motion?
to be
Oh, okay.
putting some of these people that are already producing
Is it as amended?
biodiesel out of business or
All right, the ASTM committee, DO2, that's the name for the committee that studied and set this standard, is comprised of fuel producers, engine equipment manufacturers, and third-party entities. That's the users, government agencies, and consultants. It's not made up of only the petroleum industry people. They regulate or create standards that the petroleum industry has to adhere to. Does that answer your question a little bit better, mate?
Got a motion and a second. You okay? Okay. Got a motion and a second to pass as amended. Be a substitute, yeah. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, you got a problem?
Well, I think if you sell it, you're not subject to the misdemeanor now.
That's correct.
That's right.
That's right. The retailers aren't subject.
That's right. Or the jobber.
That's right.
All opposed, no. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, sir.
I'll take care of your other bill. You can go and do whatever you got to do.
I got another one?
Yeah, but I'll handle it. Go ahead.
Well, it's a bill that y'all passed out.
Right.
We're just trying to double track them.
That's
We're
right.
going to pass yours out today, this afternoon, and it's just something that should have been done before, but it deals with giving authority to the Department of Agriculture to have a police force. They already have one, but they're having to contract it out and work it under the City of Forest Park Police Department, and the Attorney General's office says that they can't do it that way, and this gives them the ability to have a police force, which they're already having, and there's no cost to it. They've got the people, they've got the equipment. And you know all about it. You've already passed it.
Well,
Thank
since you just explained it, somebody give me a motion. Second. All in favor say aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You remember that this afternoon now.
I'll handle yours this afternoon.
All right, we got one more. Senator Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 380 creates a Equine Commodities Commission. This commission will be funded by a specialty license tag, which was a Senate resolution constitutional amendment, and it has now, yesterday, been attached to House Bill 1053, I believe it is, the omnibus tag bill that y'all sent over to us, and we'll be sending back to you shortly. As you know, horses rank sixth in the largest agriculture commodity in Georgia. I think now my understanding that they've moved to fifth. I'm still trying to verify that, trailing only broilers, cotton, timber, beef, and eggs. Horses represent 30% of the total livestock aquaculture farm gate value in Georgia. And as y'all know, the equine industry in Georgia is tremendous, and it's growing. But we're not doing as good a job as I think we can of promoting the industry here in Georgia. We have a lot of people that are either in other states that travel through Georgia, pulling their horses and their money to other states, or people that are in Georgia that are leaving to go to other events, trail rides, shows, etc., in other states. And this idea of creating this Commodities Commission to help promote and support the equine industry in Georgia came from a horse specialist at the University of Georgia that I was talking to. And so this legislation will help us continue to promote the industry in Georgia. You all know what great assets we have in Perry and Conyers and other places around where we have a tremendous economic development with horse shows and equine events. And I feel like we can do more, and we can do a little better job of promoting that and keeping the dollars here, or either bringing dollars from other states to Georgia because of our climate and the infrastructure that we have, and the potential that we have for new infrastructure to help support this industry. The bill basically creates a commodity commission just like all the others except for the peanut commission. I'd like to thank the Commissioner of Agriculture and Dr. Myers for working with me on the legislation. We changed a lot of the definitions. Some horse industry folks also helped us with that. But the makeup of the commission is the typical commodity commission. The Commissioner of Agriculture will be part of it, the President of the Georgia Farm Bureau. There'll be one member elected from the Senate Ag Committee, one member elected from the House Ag Committee. There'll be 5 additional members, all of whom shall be appointed by the members of the commission. At least 4 of such appointees shall be producers, which is defined in the legislation. Also, for the purpose of appointment of the additional members of the commission, a list of nominees shall be requested from producers of equine, so we can make sure that all of the equine different groups that are out there will be able to submit a list for consideration to make sure that everyone's well represented. The Commodity Commission will basically do 3 things with the money it's provided per the marketing order from the Commissioner of Agriculture. Number 1, they will establish plans for and use the money for advertising and promotion of equine and equine events in the state. Number 2, for research that promotes production, marketing, sale, use, utilization, and other improvements of equine. And then lastly, providing educational opportunities in regards to the equine industry. And then the last point I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, in Section 3, this act shall become effective January 1st, 2007. However, in B there it says if the constitutional amendment for the tag to fund the commission is not approved by the voters, then this act will be repealed. So in other words, if we don't have a funding mechanism, this whole act will be repealed, and hopefully that won't happen. But would like to ask for your support for creating this equine commission in Georgia, and be glad to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Jay,
I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
Make a motion, do pass.
Chuck,
Just
got a question.
Quick question. Do you have this, the tag over in motor vehicles now?
The tag
There's
bill,
a tag right here.
Yeah.
Hey, can I say something?
Is this a tag, is this a tag bill with this?
The tag bill originally was in this legislation, and then we had a constitutional amendment for it. But Chairman Rice wanted not to take up any more tag bills in the House. So he said for me, and we did this in the subcommittee, we took the tag part out of this legislation, and yesterday in my public safety committee, we put the tag bill on the House bill.
On the
big
omnibus
yes,
tag
it's
bill?
on there with
I'm
the
on motor
ag
vehicles,
tag.
the reason I'm saying they have that one over there. It's already there if you want to put it on, but you
Yeah,
won't know.
yeah,
Okay.
it's on, and it'll be coming back to the House.
Robert?
Senator Kemp, this is on, the tag's gonna be the only means of financing the commodity commission?
Right now,
Most
that's
commodity commissions, you know, that the growers, they like pecans, they like its peaches, they like its cotton, peanuts, they put so much corn to the acres, I don't know, on equine, I reckon you do the animals. It seems like to me that it should be both.
well, that's a great question, because this is a little bit different in that regard. The problem that we ran into was, most of the equine and horse selling that's going on is between individuals, so it's hard to collect that money. Originally, there was some talk of putting a fee on Coggins test. There was originally the bill had in there that we would let the producers actually, like other commodity commission, we would identify all the producers, which would basically be the equine owners in the state, and then they would vote to either support or not support having a per bag fee on horse feed, being self-imposed fee, for a nickel a bag or dime a bag or whatever, to try to help raise money. But there was a lot of people in the industry that didn't like that. It was going to be very hard to try to identify all of the producers to do that, and so we went with the tag. But I think the way the legislation's written, that they can take private funds, or if people want to have a horse show, say, or an equine event where part of the proceeds would go to the Commodity Commission, they can accept those funds. So I think in the future this is a way to get it started, and then the Commission can look at other ways in the future to try to help bring even more money to support this effort.
Well, it seems, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
it seems that the cattle industry has got it per head on sales of cattle. I think it seems like to me that if the horse industry really wanted it, that they'd be willing to put a little bit in themselves.
Well, the horse industry, or the horse people that I talked to, supported some of these other ideas. It was some of the other feed producers and others that had a concern about it, and I just don't think we were quite ready to fight that fight. I think it would be better to set this up and have people spend some time studying those things. The problem from the horse industry's perspective was about trying to get all those people registered. And of course, it was going to be a big burden on the Department of Agriculture as well to find and register every horse owner in the state to be able to do that.
But they do it on cows.
And I think that the thing about cows, I get, they're going to a sale barn and there's a transaction that takes place. A lot of times on the equine industry, you've got individual sales that are going on that's really hard and almost impossible to track.
Chuck, real quick, we're going to lose a quorum if we don't.
Okay.
Can't vote the bill
You
out.
understand that on the tag sale, you have to have 1,000 tag sales?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, got a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can
Yes.
I ask one question?
Yes.
On Senator Bullock's bill with the amendment, will that change the definition at all? Okay.
No, that's what I asked Wayne, and if you want to explain that right quick, Wayne.
The changes in Senator Bullock's bill do not touch the definition part. They only change who it applies to.
Okay, thank you.
I think where that came from was some of the jobbers and the retailers were worried that if they got a hold of.
I just wanted to make
Bad
sure we didn't
fuel.
need to do anything else to.
No.
Thank you, Mr.